Welcome to the Expanding Our Horizons Artists at Sea Showcase. My name is Carlie Wiener, and I am the Communications Director for Schmidt Ocean Institute. I'm very excited to be here today with three of our previous Artists at Sea participants. Artists are amazing storytellers that let us look at the ocean science taking place on Falkor in a very unique way. Our research vessel acts as a platform for engagement and interaction between these artists and scientists. Since its inception in 2015, we have had 36 artists from over 7 countries. I'm pleased to be joined today by 3 of our previous Artists at Sea participants to share a little bit more about their work. Please help me welcome David Bowen, Dr. Fernanda Oyazan, and Kashan Monroe. David Bowen will be joining us first. Unfortunately, he could not be here live and has sent a video to share a little bit about how he took his data from Falkor and has worked it into a new exhibit. David is an associate professor of sculpture and physical computing at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. He sailed on Falkor during a transit in July 2019 that looked at multi-beam mapping. Please take a look now at the short video from David.
Data for this installation was collected as an Artist at Sea resident aboard the Schmidt Ocean Institute research vessel Falkor as it transited from Astoria, Oregon to Honolulu, Hawaii, July of 2019. While in the middle of this enormous ocean, at times, it felt this place was completely untouched by human activities. This delusion was destroyed by the occasional piece of human-made debris floating in this vast wilderness. Three disposable plastic shopping bags playfully dance in the gallery space, articulated by wave data collected on the voyage across the Pacific Ocean. Using an onboard accelerometer, every movement of the ship caused by wave action was collected during the entire journey. This XYZ movement data is directly mapped to the movements of the bags floating in the gallery space, creating the effect that the bags are suspended in the waves of the Pacific. For my work in progress, titled The Journey, I used a swath of sonar seafloor data collected during a 2,570-mile transit across the Pacific. As we transited in Falkor, the onboard multi-beam sonar array scanned the seafloor, and the data was saved as proprietary XYZ point clouds. While on board, I developed a custom workflow using open source software to convert the point cloud data of the seafloor into commonly used STL, or Standard Tessellation Language 3D models. These models were then imported into 3D modeling and digital fabrication software. The software was used to exaggerate the seafloor texture and generate tool paths for CNC machining. A CNC machine was then used to carve the models in acrylic. The carved models are placed end to end on the floor of the gallery space. An RGB LED strip installed in the bottom of the sections is programmed to illuminate the journey chasing across the gallery space. The LEDs create a sense of movement, highlighting the textures of the seafloor, showing Falkor's journey across the Pacific Ocean.
Thank you so much, David. I'd now like to talk with Dr. Fernanda Oyazan. She is a research associate of the Coastal Social-Ecological Millennium Institute and the CIBAS of the Catholic University of Holy Concepción, Chile. Welcome, Fernanda.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to have you here to talk about the expedition you went on in 2019, which was focused on autonomous exploration in Costa Rica. Now, this was a transformative experience for you. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. There was an incredibly transformative experience for me, both as a scientist, as an artist. I was prepared to make ceramic sculptures based on biodiversity and species interactions, as I was doing before. But this expedition was on autonomous research, robots. So I had to think a little bit out of my box. I ended up exploring the process of making science, the humanness of technological research. And also what I think it was key is this experience that it showed me how good arts and science residencies can be, where art is not only seen as a way of communicating the science, but also as a part of the process of the ideas that are explored in the expedition. So Richard, Camille, the PI really made an effort of including me in the whole process. And I was present in meetings, in discussions, in the control room. I was working with clay in the same room where they were repairing the glider and processing sediment samples. So I really felt like I was at two-way relationships, which I think it is key in any arts and science collaboration and essential in the way I work now.
And one of the things, I love is the unique medium you use to create your sculpture. So can you talk a little bit more about the materials you used, and also how was it received when you did showcase it across the different exhibits?
Yeah, the piece is called Cacophony for Collaboration, and in it I explore the humanness of technology, but also the initial stages of collaboration that have a lot of entropy and chaos. So during the expedition, I asked each of the researchers to pick a position of their hands that reflected their role in the expedition, and they took it very seriously. And I also took images of doodles and notes and graphs that they use. And I did these sculptures with clay, and I trespassed those images. But I guess that what most people think is the coolest is that this clay was obtained from the bottom of the ocean in the exhibition, so at 1,700 meters below the surface. And what was interesting is that changed me profoundly. It kind of affected me viscerally. It made me want to connect more with the art making process, with the materials, with the territory. And so I end up working afterwards with pre-Columbian ceramic techniques and getting more to understand our connection to technology, but not only modern technology, also ancient technology. And people have received it very well. I guess that for different people, it speaks to different parts or different interests, and that is good, I think. It serves as a bridge on different topics and opens up the conversation about knowledge.
So I know your experience really was transformative, and you've focused since your expedition on your work a little bit differently. Now you're focusing on place and collaboration. Can you expand on that at all?
Yeah, this residency fueled other experiences and projects that I was doing, and it finally pushed me to think more deeply on territory and collaboration and communities. It pushed me to ask questions about materials and cultivation and co-creation of knowledge, of interdisciplinary knowledge. As I said before, it got me interested in pre-Columbian ceramic techniques and traditional knowledge, and also in connecting with a broader community of scientists. For example, now I'm working with people in Chile that are exploring heavy metal pollutions in rivers where traditional potter communities obtain their clay, and it's the same clay that then geologists use to reconstruct past oceanographic currents. So I'm looking at ways in which to explore these interweaved stories and narratives. And at present, I'm working in a 10-year grant that is meant to develop an institute of interdisciplinary coastal socio-ecological research. And we're in part not only as a marine biologist, but as an artist scientist. And similarly to this residency, here art is not seen exclusively as an outreach or science communication device, but as a way of thinking of knowledge differently, of wholly, sitting at the same table with other scientists and professionals. So I just have to thank the artists at SEA program and the Schmidt Ocean Institute for being a catalyst in my career.
Well, we are excited to be that catalyst and definitely want to hear more. And Kishan, I'm happy you're here to join us today. Kashan Monroe is an assistant professor of arts at the University of Bahamas, and you sailed with 3 other artists in March 2019 from Mexico to the United States, focused on multi-beam mapping. So we heard from David and Fernanda. Kishan, how has your experience been on the Falkor, and how did it maybe differ from some of the other artists? Oh, Kishan, I think you need to unmute.
Thank you, Carlie. My experience was a little different because of the fact that there were less scientists on board at the time I was on Falkor. Therefore, as artists, we actually had more freedom to move around the vessel and glean more from the marine technicians, the captain and the crew. The marine technicians were very hospitable, and we were afforded the opportunity to have hands-on experience using state-of-the-art technology. We also learned about the various apparatuses that have been used on Falkor for explorations in the past and research. So as an artist on Falkor, I was in an environment conducive to research and creative and intellectual stimulation. I grew more interested in bathymetry, intrigued by the ways in which data was visualized virtually on the various monitors located throughout Falkor. Writing blogs and participating in the Ship to Shore conference call further stimulated my interest in remote communications from sea. One of the experiences that I don't think I will soon forget was Falkor's discovery of a dead humpback whale floating in the middle of the ocean. I reflected at that point on the interconnections between life and death and the ocean.
Thank you so much, Kishan. And your work is really interesting in that it explores a lot of themes that are social and political, especially using arts and sciences. And one of the themes that I've noticed has weaved through all of your pieces and your work is the theme of territory. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Well, the first major historical project that I worked on as a professional artist was a conflict between the Bahamas and Cuba, which was due to the lack of a delimitation of maritime borders agreement. That was the single biggest political conflict in our nation's history. Since then, I've been interested in the ocean, maritime culture, as well as territory. Prior to my time on Falkor, I actually constructed a raft that I named the RV Diaspora. On this raft, I had planned to complete a series of expeditions in which I would sail adrift alone into the Atlantic Ocean. There I would remain resident aboard my creation, so to speak, engaged in an unorthodox artist research residency. So it was a residency without fixed geological location, and it explores universal themes of placelessness, migration, climate change, sustainability, and survival. So I was really playing around with Morse code and on Falkor, and ever since I came from Falkor, I've been playing around with binary code in terms of translation. How do I not only translate in terms of the imagery, but how do I even break the imagery down into something else that is actually used? Before you see it as a visual on Falkor, it's actually binary code. So I found it very intriguing trying to look at the unseen, right? And so in this image, I kind of broke it down more into my personal history.
That's amazing, Kishan. And tell me, how has your relationship changed with the ocean since being on Falkor?
Well, being on board Falkor, surrounded by that, I grew, like I said, more interested in visualizing the seafloor, right? Upon my return home, inspired by what I had learned and experienced, I made some modifications to my raft, the RB Diaspora. I incorporated the use of 3D sonar technology in order to visualize the ocean floor on a more prosumer level, of course. So I also started using binary code and Morse code more in my work, like I said, for translation of content. Hurricane Dorian decimated significant portions of 2 of the largest islands in the northern Bahamas. and it left our nation traumatized and literally broken. So for weeks, the Bahamas was in the international spotlight as another casualty of climate change. So to me, most evident during this time was the need to improve education, raise awareness of the human and the institutional capacity for climate change mitigation, as well as adaptation, impact reduction, and early warning. These goals have always been a part of my investigative pursuits. However, at this moment, such resolutions are indisputably critical to our existence in this region because we're being faced by these mega storms. It seems like almost every year now.
Well, I'm glad that you've been able to make a recovery since, and I want to unfortunately stop there because we only have a few minutes for this panel. We could go on. I encourage our viewers to learn more about our artists and some of the work that they've exhibited through our online showcase at schmidtocean.org. And I want to take some time to thank Kashan and Fernanda for being here today and for everyone to join us. We will now transfer to the last session of today. This will be on biodiversity, and Dr. Rick Spinrad will lead a panel on aliens of the deep. Thank you for joining.